Hello, everyone. Today, our special guest is John Rosenfeld. He is a veteran film and television actor, and he's also a professional acting coach. And today, we explore storytelling through the eyes of an actor and how understanding the process of an actor can help writers, directors, and all branches of filmmaking and storytelling. Enjoy. When an actor gets a script for the first time, what is their best way of approaching that, and how do you, acting wise and coaching wise, have an actor break down their character? Because you go really in depth on like create a backstory.
You gotta, first of all, I'd say, it sounds so simple. You have to read it.
Right.
And you have to read it again and again and again. Matthew McConaughey says something that I really like. Whereas he likes to read a script when he's tired. He likes to read it when he's had a drink. He likes to read it when he's full of energy. I think it's more than anything of what can I mean, I talk about this all the time, but it's your first experience with the script is really important because that is the point where you listen. You're the creative instrument, right? And you've got this text, and now you've got to let it absorb and get the creativity flowing, and then also figuring out how do you experience a script. And there's a lot of research that goes into it as well, because when you're reading a script, there's this myth that the best actors, it just comes naturally. I would just say that the best actors work the hardest. They're so often the most cerebral, who are it's about being like an investigator of the script, of yourself as a human. And the first time you read it, you're also wondering if it is Quentin Tarantino. Okay, what's he creating right now? This is a big thing. Like, you start to know what his voice is, right? And you understand his canon of work. But then also, and if you're doing David Fincher, you kind of know where you're going. But then at the same time, it might be Paul Thomas Anderson. And then you're like, which type of Paul Thomas Anderson are we doing right now? Or is it Kenneth Long? I mean, there's so many variables that go into something. So the first thing I'd say is when you read the script, it almost is, it's kind of like that's where you start to recognize what kind of homework you have to do. It's different every single time. Because if you're working on and then when you're reading your script, you're figuring out, like, you'll write down your first instincts, or you'll write down some thoughts. I think the most important thing is you're not solidifying anything yet. The more you can do, like Stella Adler, Uta Hagen, they talk about this all the time, just like absorb the story. Then you start to get more granular, where you start to kind of go cinematically. You start to think thematically, like, what's this really about? If you're thinking about your character eventually, where does my character fit within this symphony of things? How am I really serving the story? And then you start thinking from a performer standpoint of, you're probably initially thinking, like, why the hell did I get offered this thing?
Okay.
Or why did I get it? I don't understand why. But then you have to convince yourself of why, and then you start to get into the work. So, like, often the fear starts.
Which is part of the journey. So
Part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm sure everybody's got like their different approaches and things like that. I love that. Like you said, Matthew McConaughey would say, like, when I'm tired, or when you got to live in this. And maybe you also go into this aspect attached to the concept, the difference between, like, okay, I'm reading the script, and you may have your preconceived ideas on that, so to speak, or what you're reading in the page, versus I'm understanding this character, I'm understanding this script. Let's talk about the difference between just reading it and applying it versus I'm bringing this into my world, and this is creating this character.
Again, it's so different for everybody. But I think, listen, there are times you're going to read a script and you're just going to be, it's just going to be, oh my God, I know this person. This is like, or that, like that, like I know exactly how to enter them, and it just hits you right off. But then there are other times where you read it and it's like, this is not me. This is not how I lead in the world. And now I got to start figuring out where it exists. We were, I can't say it, but we were coaching this actor on a movie that he got nominated for. But like when he got an Oscar nomination for it. But like, initially he was so clueless about it.
Oh.
and we worked with him, and it was just watching him try things, one like just try it, and it was more just. I think our function there was more just to kind of be witness and tell him what worked was a collaboration, or like I think there's something there, and then just watching him kind of excavate until, and for him the secret was finding physically, and then just like one little in, because I mean listen, acting process is a trick. It's just it's getting out of our way into the imagination of what it is and knowing where it exists in you, and often the thing that prevents us from finding it is blocks. We're just blocked,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, isn't that the idea behind ayahuasca? I guess I've never done it, but I hear it's great. But it's about like your synapses connecting in a different way to where you're just seeing things. But I
Wow.
think that there is a place where we often don't see it because we don't even know it, but we've kind of predetermined what it is in some way. Sometimes you just have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of your entire structure. Like whatever you think it is, it's not that.
And it's so freeing, and I love how you injected that too, where you got to get out of your own way. I
And
may
it's
not
hard.
think like this at character at all, and that's interesting.
But that's the end of the day, isn't that? That's the job. Is look, listen. If you make acting, if you simplify it to the simplest level, your job is just to think all the thoughts that character would think. That's literally it. Think all the thoughts the character would think. That sounds so simple. It's also being aware and being allowing yourself to sit there and go, I have no fucking clue what my character's thinking. Right? I don't know how to experience this. I don't know. It all starts with just being able to say, I don't know what this is.
There's a lot of talk too of like the honesty of it or the truthfulness of it, and that's what that. I mean, first and foremost, as an actor, your job approaching this character, like you just said, like I don't know what this is, and that's where sort of the journey as the actor begins, so to speak, in many ways.
I mean, this sounds so simple, but if you can't be moment to moment with your own confusion with the part, how the hell are you ever going to be moment to moment within the character?
Grateful. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be moment to moment. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm putting this cup over here. Or I don't know how to experience you. You have to. At the end of the day, it's the most difficult, simple thing you've ever done.
Okay.
You know, it really is because it's just listening and responding.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
But the problem is, you have to listen and respond from the character's point of view, and in the character's circumstances. As you know, it's all so cliche. But there are just times where you get something, and it just is. It's that's the magic of it all, isn't it? The
Yeah.
magic of it is just when you unlock it, when you start to find it, it's so invigorating and stimulating, and you're figuring out how to like live in this, how to live in this skin. And again, going to the backstory,
Yes.
listen, there are plenty of actors who say I don't do backstory, and they give wonderful performances. By saying they don't do backstory, I think they're really saying they don't want to get too intellectual. But I think when they're in it, they are creating backstory, whether they know it or not. And I think they know it. It's just they're saying, when someone says, I have no method, yes, and bullshit.
Yeah. Yes. That's why I was very, very excited to have you on here to dive in depth on this aspect. And another thing too, I remember you posted something recently because I want to dive into as an actor how to approach acting the emotion and really getting that, because I remember you talked about the subject of anger. I'm not sure if you remember that post, but you're talking about specifically subject of anger. It could be any emotion, but really delivering that.
Listen, it's hard when you ask these questions. I think there's so many. It's all circumstance. It's all situational,
Very
right?
much, yeah.
Because in really good writing, and it's still very exacting, but you can have so many different experiences within a scene. With certain like less substantial writing, we literally need to have the yell there, so we can make sure you get stabbed.
Right.
on that line. That's like, for a lot of network TV, for example, like we have to, like, there's certain emotional, there's a diagram to, like, a structural element that you have to do, which is why sometimes actors feel a little bit less like freedom. See, for example, like, you need to cry here. I'm so sorry. Like, you actually have to cry here because of the just editing wise, and we're going to commercial and whatever it might be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, like when you're doing a movie like Marriage Story, a great script, very long scenes, and you don't predetermine where a scene has to get to emotionally. Like, you never can, you can't. And it's like you're playing tennis,
Right.
and if you're dancing and you got a great dance partner, we're gonna do something good if we're just going moment to moment. But I think when it comes to, like, anger, the whole idea of anger, I think you just think of emotion of this way. It's like, look, no one goes into any situation to get emotional.
Right.
You're going into a situation to try to overcome any emotion. If I'm angry at you, I'm going to try not to show that I'm angry until I just can't.
Right. And then,
But and if I want to cry, like, think about, I sit next to my wife and son sometimes on my couch and we watch a movie. And when I start crying to something, I am trying so hard not to cry.
right.
Not that I'm embarrassed about my tears, but I was like, sometimes I'm crying at the dumbest thing, where I know my son's gonna make fun of me, or I know, like, they're gonna, or my wife's gonna go, "Oh, he's crying," and I don't want that. I don't want to get rewarded for crying, so I'm trying so hard, which makes it worse. I just think too often what you see actors do. And by the way, I've done it. I did a pilot. I'm not going to tell you to look it up,
Okay.
but I, in my audition, I cried. I got there organically, but when we taped it, boy, I really wanted to cry, and I was not very good, and I looked constipated. I'm like trying to cry. But I think that actors too, I think what happens is we need to release ourselves of that. The truth is, it's like, look, we want to find the truth. And, as Edward Norton says, we either got to get there 100% or we got to approximate it 100%. Meaning there are days you're just not going to be, we're human.
Yeah.
We are human. You might just not be able to really feel the truth that day. You feel like poop. Your stomach is feeling bad. You just feel like the givens, like you're half in it, you're half out. You know.
Especially if you're on set that day, like, I don't feel this. Like, what are some exercises or tips or anything you can do to kind of get yourself there or approximate, if you will?
I mean, God, for crying, there's tricks. There's a lovely thing called a tear stick. You've got so many things. Typically, when you're in those places, you can always manufacture those things. It feels terrible to do it. You hate doing it. No one likes it, but we got to finish the day. You're a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like, how do you approach it when someone's just like, would you say, like, look, you're not getting there? Can you just? We just need one shot of it.
Right. One and done. That's all we need. We just need that little moment.
Yeah, and then there's all these exercises like ramp, like, just sit there. If it needs to be some explosive scene, I'll run around a building kinesthetically. The really point is, like, how can you kinesthetically trick your body into feeling what that is, even if there's no, like, what are some of the things associated with anger, like feeling really hot, a little red. Some people use music, some people just think of Donald Trump. There's so many different variables that can just get you what it could be. Images, because they can be improv. We do a little repetition exercise. There's all these different variables. At the end of the day, though, it's also, and it depends if we're talking about auditioning or on set.
Right.
But on set, the director is looking, and we got to just trust the director that he or she is getting what they want and that they're talented and have good taste and knows that that we can make this work. Because listen, there are days, Tom Hanks said something that I always loved, where he said, there are days where he will leave set and, like, where he's like, I just felt like crap. I just felt like I wasn't present. And there were other days where I felt like I killed it. And oddly enough, sometimes those days where he thought he killed it, he's very boring and very vanilla. And the days where he was really struggling, it was amazing. But what that tells me is, when he's not feeling good, it means there's a very present, like, agita because you know you're not there and you're trying to find something and you're trying. So it's really alive because you're watching an obstacle happen. There's an obstacle. Like, I'm not there. So
Yeah.
he's not planning, he's not predicting. I also think of Steven Spielberg said something I love to he says that if I go to set and I'm not nervous, then it's bad. It's bad. It means I already know exactly how I'm going to shoot it. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow the shot list.
Right.
But he's like, when you're really good, you're going to pivot based on what's happening that day. And I think we need to remember when it comes to acting, all the work is so you can just leap,
Okay.
not plan. The work is not sitting there going, I planned every moment, movement. You certainly explored everything. You've explored, but at the end of the day, all the work is to jump off the ledge and be in the world. Like Paul Newman would say, they would ask Paul Newman, like, there was a great thing where he said, like, do you just love being on set? And he's like, no. He's like, I love everything outside of it. I love the rehearsals. I love the digging in the script. I like the rolling up my sleeves, the time spent, the collaboration. And what I hear when he says that, I haven't had the privilege of like sitting down with him. That would have been amazing. But what I hear from that is he's saying, it's everything I love. It's like, it's the investigation, it's the exploration. But at the end of the day, being on set is the waiting and the allowing it all to happen. And often you will be working on a text that is not fun to be in.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you're Paul Newman and you're in, The Verdict, where you're an alcoholic and doing all these things, that's not like an enjoyable experience to be this person. You're living the life of a self-hating, man. So it's, but then of course it changes though, because then it depends on what genre you're working on.
Right. And I think another thing I want to bring up too, what is a good way with that dynamic of the director and actor? Because I hear so many sides of like the actors trying to do this for the director, but I feel like it's a collaborative effort.
There's so many answers to that because you're right. In theory, like you ask Meryl Streep, like, what does she want from a director? She's like, nothing.
Right.
You hired me for a reason. Let me do my work.
Yes. Yeah.
But Meryl Streep also, beyond being just great, gets really great material.
Right. Yeah.
To work on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It truly is depending on your level, where you're at. Like, I get hired often on shows to work with actors. I get hired often to coach like people who have leads in shows or movies who often just don't have the experience. So the studio or the network pays me to like just get them ready for that event, to like help them, massage it. Like, they're clearly very talented, but they just need help. Like, I was working on a show for a couple episodes called Made for Love with Kristen Milioti, with this one actor who was newer, very talented, and it was really fun. But like, Kristen Milioti didn't need any help. She
Right.
didn't. But it was funny. She came into the room. She's like, "You want me to help her?" And I was like, "Yeah, come on." And she like was running the scenes. And Kristen was like, "You got anything for me?" I was like, "No. I mean, you could help her with this moment." But like, she didn't need anything. It's all about where people are at. But I think more than anything, what actors want, they would love to know what your vision is. And usually they want to know what your vision is. They want to know someone who's an absolute in command. They want to have faith that this is going to turn out well.
Right. Right.
They
We're
want to have
spending
faith
time on
in
this
them
and
stewarding the ship. But I mean, listen, I think it's also hard because and when you're doing TV, in TV, it's so quick, it's so fast. Directors don't have necessarily the bandwidth. Like, we hired you to do a job, and we gotta, like, in a way, giving you a note is a bit of a pain in the ass. You know
totally
what I
see
mean?
that. Yeah, it's because that pace is just so much more than like a film or whatnot. Like you on Bruce Almighty versus like NCIS. There's like a different dynamic. Which, by the way, I could spend here all day talking about your filmography because you've done amazing work in all facets. But yeah, being on TV, I imagine that pace. But that's what I felt going into it. What you're saying is, we casted you for a reason. This is your job. This is my job. It's collaborative. I want you to bring that scene alive better than I ever imagined. And I'm sure you, as an actor, obviously want this to turn out. It's hard, right? You're in the middle of something. It's hard to tell if this is, especially editing and adding music, if this is what this is actually going to look like at the end of the day. It's a probably a whole other level of the subject too.
It's funny. John Malkovich said once that the only directors he really like loves working with are the Coen brothers, because you will literally know exactly how it will look on film, because they literally are showing you. They're showing you the shot. This is what it will look like. Their brains are so visual,
Yeah.
and they're such masters of that. He's like, so you're, but sometimes, and I think what he's also saying is that sometimes you do a movie and it's like, I didn't think that was the movie I was in. Like, what movie you're in when you're doing the Coen brothers, and I
Yeah.
think that's true with very special directors. But having been involved in some not very good movies, you don't, sometimes you watch it and you're like, that's what we shot.
Yeah. Like,
And
okay.
I didn't have enough experience to I probably would have known that we were in terrible movie earlier if I had more experience. But like at the end of the day, a great movie is a miracle.
That's a great point. It's a miracle it even gets finished, let alone a great movie.
Yeah, but just I mean, God, I can't believe I'm talking about this movie, but like Hail Mary. I mean, think about how many departments had to succeed to make that movie good.
Right.
I mean, that movie could have been awful.
Oh
That
yeah.
movie could have lost so much money and done so poorly, but between great acting and great directing and great cinematography and great the puppetry and the great and like with doing like visual effects, I mean, just so many things came together that it's quite the achievement. Ron Howard says that like when you do a movie, your heart's gonna break a million times. It's like a location doesn't work through, or like we didn't get the scene quite exactly we wanted to, or weren't able to do this. But the editing, I mean, there's this. It's so, you know.
There's so many facets that go into it. Like, I think it was like Tom Hanks in Green Mile, and they're like, he was giving the role of a lifetime, but we're just doing over shoulder for him. This was all on Michael Clark Duncan. Even Michael was like, I mean, he did that for me. He's not on screen like that and that's as an actor. Like, some people are like, just like, I mean, he could have just been like this. Well, Michael had to be, but he was delivering in, and it's also something palpable. Like when you see a play or something live. I had one guy. He was a stunt double for Tommy Lee Jones in Ad Astra, and he was dangling in the air, so he had to be Tommy Lee Jones for this scene. And he says, "I'm here," and whatever. Brad Pitt's basically his character saying goodbye to his dad, and it's like I'm getting hit in point blank, and I can feel the motion of that. I can feel whatever he was doing, and then it's amazing that comes across on screen because there's all this distance between time and space on screen to your eyeballs. So isn't that like an interesting side of things that actors they're really embodying that almost tangible.
I mean, when you mention people like Brad Pitt and I think the biggest journey for actors it is the journey of how do you get to a place where you're really changing your relationship to the camera, where you welcome it.
Hmm.
It requires allowing and vulnerability and having a relationship with the camera of like, I want you to witness me. I want you to let you inside. And some people think they're there, but they're not there yet. They're still nervous. There's still tightness. They still feel there's a thin film of self protection or self consciousness. I struggled with that,
Hmm.
and I didn't even know I struggled with it until I started to find a different relationship. I was like, oh wow. So I was that is what it is because it's all you know.
Right. Yeah, you can only
I
pull
mean,
from what you know.
and if that's all you know, you don't know that it's different. You know how it can be different. Benedict Cumberbatch says that I just love the idea of acting. We're all in the pursuit of the impossible. We're in the pursuit of that which can never be achieved. And that's that just completely transcendent, 100% dropped in the entire time experience. Like, that's the goal.
Right. Yeah.
Will we get there? No. But I love that because it's like, why would you stop it? It's like you can always get closer to the sun.
Right. Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
let's keep on trying and go further. I can get a little deeper. And to do another like space movie, like watching Matthew McConaughey. What's that space movie he did?
Oh, Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he got that on the first take, where he's just, crying. And directors can make it. I will say this. Directors, I think, can set actors up for success by willing to veer from the plan. Like, if I sense that you're there right now and you're ready to go, let's just get it. Let's not wait. Maybe we can screw with our shot list today. But I think that,
I agree with that, like, wholeheartedly, because that will help them pop into whatever. And I even found a lot of times, almost Clint Eastwood style, it's like a lot of times the best take we did, it was that first one, because they weren't in their head, and then they kind of like, well, you see them almost like implode or get too, and like, or maybe it takes a dozen takes, and then that on my end, because I directed and edited. And so I'm seeing even more scrutinizing and editing. I'm like, that one, whatever one where I feel like they weren't thinking about it. They were just doing it.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. I mean, I coach every day and I tape people. And, I have one client, Chloe, her first take is always, it's funny, we'll do like 50, 20 takes. And I go back, it's like, it was the first one. I just should have stopped. And she says, that was always the first one. I was like, it's always the first one. Because after that, then she starts like putting her hands on it. But what it does require, here's the thing, which is not always the case. It requires an actor to be so prepared.
Yeah.
And there are actors that don't start getting prepared. They don't actually know what they're doing until like take 10.
Okay.
And then where some actors, like, there's certain like very well-known Oscar-winning actors who I know for a fact, like, will go to set and be so lost for their first 8 takes. And then on the night, they start to find it. They end up giving a really good performance, a wonderful performance, maybe even Oscar-winning performance. However, I wish actors had the opportunity to watch some of the not good takes and to witness the whole thing. Because this is the most important thing you could ever just to think about. If you're a well-known actor, right, you're probably getting involved in a script that, in a project where the budget's not $200,000. Not that it never happens that they do, but like in all likelihood, they have a bit of a buffer when it comes to shooting schedule. And they know that if an editor uses a bad take of their work, they're going to get fired.
I see. Okay, yes.
So they have a built-in patience for finding it. Where you couldn't do that if you were on NCIS.
Right, because it's so...
Oh my God. Come in. It's gotta, guys, we can't.
Right.
It's like soap opera. Like in soap opera, they want to do it in one take.
That's really fast-paced soap opera, right?
That's the gig. Get it there. And like, have you ever watched any of Tyler Perry shows?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're shooting episodes in a day and a half.
Insane.
Like it's 35 pages in a day and a half. So we don't have room. I'll give you. This is a funny thing. There was an actor who was in class. He was talking about this other actor who said, "Man, they were doing this soap," and he's like, "I think what I said was unintelligible. Like they had just done a scene. He's like, I said like gobbledygook, and they're like, no, it was fine." And then he said they watched it the next day. He truly said something unintelligible.
Okay.
They let it go. We don't have time to go back and reshoot it. It was a long scene.
Do you feel like some people get too cerebral, too into their own head. They almost where it almost becomes making them lethargic in their acting or whatnot. It almost becomes a barrier. Like how did the other side of the spectrum where people are like too into their own head?
Do you mean being in their own head on set, just like they're not
Yes, like they're
looking
too
for?
like yeah, like they're too like I don't think I did that take right, or it's like maybe that's where the trust is with the director and whatnot too. How would an actor approach something like that? Like they start putting brakes on themselves or questioning themselves.
I mean, look, of course you have those actors. I think hopefully the actor knows themselves well enough that this is just what they do, and to just
Okay,
know that they're going to have those thoughts and they move past it, where they ultimately just have to trust the director. But it creates a challenge for a director. You're just like, no, it's great. It's great. I would tell you, like there has to
right,
be that trusting thing. But then you have certain actors who just can't get out of their own way, and that you really hope that they figure it out. You really hope so. But I think also, listen, I'll always remember like I was doing an episode of Desperate Housewives, and Felicity Huffman, I mean, this was so long ago, but Felicity Huffman was just like, this moment isn't working. And I really loved that she did that because the showrunner, like, and the director and showrunner, like, got together with her and they talked about it and they tried different things and they ended up making it work. But I think the one thing about Felicity Huffman is she's a really talented actor who knows when it's not working.
right. Listen to your
You know what I
actor.
mean? She
Yeah,
knows, and she made it better by stopping. So that was a really like that was great. So I think there's different degrees. You know what I mean? But when it's just someone's habit to be in their head, eventually, you that will eventually, I think, work against them. It has to,
right.
because
Yeah,
ultimately, are they not trusting the team? And no matter
interesting.
what, you're in trouble if you're not trusting.
Right.
If you're not trusting the director, it's gonna be really hard.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can only imagine. And maybe this is a dreaded question. I think. I mean, I haven't acted before, so I don't know. But like, have you or anybody you've coached? How do you approach a scenario where like, okay, they got the gig, they get the rest of the script, and they're like, oh no, this is like horrible writing. There's no way I can get around the shitty dialogue. Who talks like this? How do you professionally as an actor approach that? It's like, okay, I got the gig, but this is an issue.
That happened very recently.
No way.
I've had this lovely woman, just so wonderful, came to work through a script she had been offered for quite a nice paycheck. That was shooting in like I believe it's Italy.
Okay.
She was flying to Italy, and I'm 95% certain this script was written by AI.
You can just tell. I
Because
mean,
there were all these conflicting things that made no like it was hard to imagine a human being sitting down and putting together these sentences because they were so well crafted, illogically well crafted. Like
okay.
it was following a logic, it just didn't make any sense. Like, you could tell the computer understood it,
Yeah.
but this didn't. And that's the problem with AI, right? Is AI does not deal with doubt. The thing that makes a writer good is you're like, is this any good? AI has no doubt. I mean, they might just go, do you want it warmer? Do you want it sadder? Would you like it more efficient? You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's not saying, I'm feeling a little insecure about the moment, about the way I'm developing this character. No, it's like, I feel full confidence in what I just showed you. So a lot of what we were working on, it was really hard to know it was really a challenge. Go, okay, here's what they wrote. Let's figure out the movie we want to be in. And we actually spent a lot of time rewriting some things to pitch to the director. And
Interesting.
we made some of the scenes so much better. And then she got to Italy and they're like, no.
Oh no.
And she's like, yeah, the movie's going to be terrible. It's just going to be it was bad. And
Oh
and we
man.
knew it was, we just did our best to go like, what
Yeah.
if we could make it good? We did our best.
I think too. It's also well, mine's independent filmmaking short film. So I had a part where it was important in part to establish all the friends that are going to wind up. You got to figure a way to like in a relationship care about these people because they're all about to die and the next like Final Destination style going to be dying pretty soon. Why would you care? You know, and we have this party scene where all the friends meet together, and I'm not, my strength is not dialogue yet. Another reason I was excited to talk to you. But the actors, we all got together. We did some read throughs via Zoom, but we got together and they're like, hey, based off what we went over, can we like, are we allowed to ad lib here? And we go, please. That's why I got you and you and you. Here's a rough skeleton of what I want. It wasn't married to like, it has to be verbatim like this.
Right. I think improvisation is definitely, it can be really well utilized and it can be really helpful. I think it's a great exercise in general to improvise a scene, to be prepared for the script just to be thrown away if the director's like, listen, what I wrote is shit. Just improvise the whole thing. That lets you know that you really know what the story is, what needs to be accomplished in that scene, what's happening, like where are we? Like even if you look at the movie Kramer versus Kramer, the famous scene where, Dustin Hoffman smacks the glass against the wall. They really improvised a lot of that because it wasn't just working. It just wasn't working. At least when you hear is that Meryl Streep's not exactly thrilled that he,
Well, she's more.
Yeah. Shards of glass were spraying over her being, I don't think she's like, tone it down, Dustin. But I think the problem sometimes with improv is, depending on the text, sometimes you just watch inexperienced actors or less experienced actors improv in order to get a laugh on set, and that becomes unusable because it's not story based.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's just they're trying to get a laugh that because and then other actors are like, that's really funny, and it's like you lose sight of actually what's working.
Right.
But I do think allowing improv, I think that can be useful. I think the hardest thing is just from you better have a good director and editor and story person who's at least understand how it's all gonna come together.
I love that because like that's the way I approach it. I mean, I'm like, hey, this is a psychological thriller, and I always feel like a opposite side of that coin is comedy, and it's got similar like delivery and like, hey, here's the shot list. This is what we're getting, and I schedule this so that we can play. So I want it because we all want this to be the best thing possible, and we all want that moment. I thought I heard like Jimmy Stewart like a long time ago. He was sitting in front of like a bunch of actors and talking about stuff, and someone asked a thoughtful question where it brought up to him like, what we're trying to do in the film making process is finding and creating moments because that's what you're going to remember later or whatnot. It's just like the catchy part of a song, I thought that was a very interesting. It was such a simple thing, and he wasn't just talking about a beat, like a moment. Like if I think of "It's Wonderful Life," I think of "Hot Dog." And he says you can plan as much as you want and try to write it in there, and that's why I wanted this window where like, hey, let's shoot this, but now we have room to play, and then you get the like lightning in the bottle kind of concepts.
Did you get it?
I did. Yeah.
You got your lightning. You got your moments.
I got my moments. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because you don't want to be too precious. But I think, like Jimmy Stewart, I mean, how many hours was he in front of a camera? I mean, and then once he went in the Hitchcock era, but then, he had all his movies, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, then he was like, It's a Wonderful Life. But a man had of the volume of movies that were in his head. And that's to me that's every actor's and director's job is to fill that database. And you were talking about Quentin Tarantino. I mean I think about it, Quentin Tarantino and Martin Scorsese. Their database is I don't know how infinite. They've seen like every movie, every shot, so they're
how do you get all that?
But you can do that work as an actor. Sometimes what really bothers me is I'll mention a show or a movie, and when actors I know or that I teach haven't seen that, I'm like, you gotta know this movie. You gotta know this show. Because this is what the writer is basing it on. Have you watched the new horror, like the funny horror show Widow's Bay on Apple TV?
I haven't sat down and watched it yet, but I see clips and people are going nuts over it. Like it's horror, but there's comedy elements.
It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode, last episodes, it's honoring Halloween. You know, it's honoring Boogeyman. It's honoring Jaws. It's honoring like these movies that were so part of our development. You know, it's using and it's funny, and they do it really beautifully to where they touch on horror, but they never. Not that I'd show my, that I think you should show children, but they put a ceiling on how scary it gets.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? They don't do the jump scares. They stay away from something that will honestly traumatize you.
Bring you up
Because
to it. Yeah.
it's also, and it's very funny. It's very funny. And just the acting is wonderful. It's just, well, Matthew Rhys is just truly extraordinary.
That's on my queue for sure. And I wanted to ask you this too. Like one of my all-time favorite actors, like Kurt Russell, and I think I always admired the acting choices he made. When I mean choices, not just on screen, I mean like jobs and what projects to take on. For example, Johnny Depp, by all means, out of 21 Jump Street, just could have done all heartthrob movies and had just as illustrious of a career, but he took on more of what he was appealed to, like this quirkiness. So, like, what's a good approach for an actor? Obviously, if you need a gig's a gig, you need to get paid. You got paying rent and mortgage and all that. I got it. But like building a filmography, if you will, or a body of work, what's a good way for actors, mindset wise, to approach? Hey, should I take this project versus this project? What's a good way to approach this aspect?
I mean, what level are we talking about?
I
If
see
we're
what you're
talking
saying.
about, when you're at a level like, when you're Tom Hanks, you get to like, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to do
Like a
right now?
buffet line. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I think when you're younger, when you're starting out, the most important thing is just to figure out like, what do you like watching?
Hmm.
Where does your being, what is it drawn to? Because that's most likely the place where you're going to willingly go. And ideally, it's, you think about like for me, when I came up, I was so drawn to my first thing was just like I loved emotional truths, like dramas that
Hmm.
explored the human condition. I just like everything. I liked Star Wars, but I really wasn't like a fantasy guy.
Hmm.
You know, I loved like I only really liked the first Star Wars. I know, I'm so sorry. The first one, the first movie. And then the rest I'm like, I don't care. Because if you think about it, that wasn't really following this young guy. I love those origin stories. It was much
Yeah.
more of a psychological exploration to a certain extent. I did love, like, my favorite movie ever was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
You know, I mean, that was just like to me was magic.
total man. I bring this up on the show all the time. I was about one and a half. My parents have this on the screen. I'm like, I could barely form a thought here. And it just from the stone ball coming down to up to the point where Marion's like doing the shot glass. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it's special.
I saw it at the Mann National Theater in Westwood, and I think I saw it 3 times. It was 1981, wasn't it? Or was that what it was?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I was 10. I was just like, it was just like what around that age, and I mean, it was this. You only get those feelings a couple of times, but I think you got to start off going like, okay, where because it's also honoring your internal voice. But just no different than like, you watch a lot of comedians and their first memories are watching Andy Kaufman, or for younger people, they're like, they grew up on like Dave Chappelle, and that was like the thing that made them want to start doing stand up. So I think you really have to honor like, hey, who's that actor that makes me go, oh my God, that, And look, the reality is, let's think really positively and think that's the direction I want to go in. Like, I want to do parts like that. Doesn't mean that's where you're going to get, but at least your energies are pointed to a place of curiosity and interest, and that I want to be able to do that. It doesn't mean you won't pivot,
Right. Right.
I think, a person I think of a lot is Billy Bob Thornton. Very talented guy, but he is someone that got typecast as a schlubby character actor. And this guy had the audacity to go, no, I'm a star. And and then he wrote Sling Blade for himself,
Right.
and then he's like, no, I'm a leading man, and now he's like, literally, no one else was gonna have that thought for him.
Right. You had to, yeah, he's not sitting there waiting for a phone call. You got to go do it.
He had to have the vision for it, and then everyone was like, "Okay, I buy it." Like there is a conviction you need to have.
Mm.
You know, if you're working on your writing, you're typically, you don't even know, but you're working on your acting. And if you're working on your acting, you're working on your writing. And if you're but I believe that like an actor should direct something, a director should edit something, an editor should act. I mean, it's really important, I think, to just have empathy for every person's situation and realize how hard it all is.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Listen, the hard is what I love about it. It's the grind.
Yeah.
It's the figuring it out. But I do think you have to, as far as a young actor, going like, what parts, what script? I mean, like, what should I be going after? It starts off with following where you're being drawn, and then eventually from that, if you just actually go full in that direction, you're gonna get curious about other things. Like, it's gonna give birth to other ideas and notions. You know, like you always know when David Fincher's directed something, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's very David Fincher.
Yes. Yeah.
But the cool thing about like Paul Thomas Anderson,
Nobody else like that.
it's very unpredictable. Like, what's it going to be?
Right. Yeah. That's
You
very,
know, like we don't know,
yeah.
you know, because he seemed pretty capable of almost anything.
It is amazing. And not only creating your own style and approach, but the growth and experience you have, and it just opens things up. Or like how you said, how you started your career versus when you got more seasoned, you're approaching these things. Real quick too, like how did you get involved in acting initially? What was your route? And then at what point, whether it was on a project, a TV show, a movie, did you go, this is my career. This is what I want to do.
I mean, I could tell you. I mean, I went to college and then I acted. I wasn't very good. I mean, I got a lot of leads in plays just because I think I was one of the few people that could be leads in plays. You know, as
Okay.
far as like type wise. The leading man. But at the end, I actually thought I did a pretty good job in a couple of things, and I decided to apply to grad school.
Okay.
And I was still in college, and I was like, what are the top 5 schools? So I applied to a couple of them, and I got into one, which I was not anticipating me getting in. But I was really grateful I did, and I got to spend 3 years in grad school, and then I loved it. I loved the whole thing. I loved the whole process. I loved working that hard. I love concentrated study, like where all of a sudden I'm not worried about a test. I'm worried about reading scripts and rehearsing and doing a play, and it was just really magical. And then I went to New York after that and did enough good stuff, and then I signed with some big people, and then I moved to LA and kind of got thrown to the wolves, and teaching really became a way to just supplement my income initially.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really struggled with I was definitely my worst enemy when it came to acting, just because I really struggled with the waiting.
Oh, okay.
I struggled in between, like when like in between the jobs or in between auditions. That's where, so teaching became a place for me just to like, where I was happy to at least still be creative and doing that. And then I just started noticing that I just started spending a lot more time committed to my coaching and teaching than I was to actually like saying yes to things acting wise. So I have a very realistic look at like where I went, but like teaching really just initially started off as a way to supplement my income, but I really loved it was providing me many of the same parts of that acting was, which was the storytelling and the collaboration and the curiosity and all that.
Interesting. Yeah, because essentially between jobs, you're unemployed. You know, it's, people don't talk about that side of it so much. They're like, oh, it's in this big movie. Yeah, I got to live on that for the next 3 to 4 years. Or
Oh, and these days, my God. Yeah, I mean, one of my clients, they shot 4 seasons of a show. It took them 7.5 years to shoot those 4 seasons.
man,
I mean, that's a long time. What year did Severance come out?
oh man, it was like 2022.
Okay, think about that. Oh my God. February of 2022. Is that not crazy?
That's wild.
No, so think about this. It's 20 of 2022. They are currently at this moment at the beginning stages of casting for season 3.
Puts it really in perspective.
That means they're not going to come in season 23, maybe until 2028.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's crazy.
You know, the person that I taught a long time ago is Britt Lauer. And I'm just like thinking, like, okay, so everyone's walking around going, oh my God, you're the lead of a show. But you've shot how many episodes over
Right.
6 years?
Yeah.
7 years? I mean, it is pretty insane.
And it really is. Like we said earlier, like it's amazing anything even gets kind of done at all,
Yeah,
let alone well. And the timing on that, I think the important thing is the collaboration side of things. But
100%.
what is a good thing? There's a loaded question, so you can do all these different acting exercises and stuff. But what's a
Sure.
good way for people to develop their acting muscles, so to speak, and keep those in tuned and sharp? Because on a notice, it could be like, hey, here's this script, you're going to do this audition. It could be that, or it could be a big lull. It messes with the mind so much. How do you keep sharp and ready, I guess, is the right way to look at that.
I mean, it gets different. It's different for some people, but I'd say for a majority of people, acting cannot be an event. If it's an event, that means you haven't been doing it. Like, it's not an event for you to do this podcast. It's not an event
Right.
to. Did you come up in editing?
Good call. Yeah, I actually started with editing, and then
Yeah.
because the podcast side, and then I'm like, editing is script writing, is acting, like it's all. I started
Yeah.
seeing how everything related.
Usually it starts that way. And so like no matter what, you're just as a teacher and a coach, like you can't fake. It's really hard to fake experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And just when we talk about, what's happening to your central nervous system
Mm.
when you're doing this. And I think that you might be a really talented actor, but like I think that's what happened to me when I was coming up, is that the first time I tested for a show, I was talented. I was testing for it. That's where you sign. But I didn't do a good job because the event was too big that day. It's repetition, repetition, repetition. It's funny. I once did a post about this. I thought it was really interesting. I did a post, very simple post, like, it does require repetition. And it was really interesting how, like, a number of actors were like, no, that's not true. I, and they started to, they got defensive, which I thought was just really curious. And I also wanted to go, like, everyone was defensive. I was like, but you're not working. But I think there's other ways to supplement work. Like, as far as working on acting, it's just living creatively as a habit.
Yeah.
I think it's parenting is a form of creativity. Like,
Oh
often I'll
yeah.
have a baby, and then they come back and their acting's great because they've been living in this creative space with their child. So I don't think it's just like being on set, but I do think that you can't help for your life to bleed into your work. And we want to think that when you are working on something, that you're able to get into that creative space without all of the crippling anxiety or worry or tension, you know
Yeah.
and typically the only way to arrive there is where you're in familiar territory.
That's so true. I mean, you got that roadmap already mapped out, and you can use it. It's a tool, right? At that, essentially.
As if we go full circle to what we talked about earlier, it allows you to go, I don't know what this is. It allows you to say, I don't know a lot, because you have such faith that you'll figure it out. It's like, eventually I'm going to figure it out. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I coach and an actor's like, what is this? I was like, I don't know. I haven't even read it yet. I love, like, I may teach this thing, but I need to know what we're talking about,
Yeah.
you know? But I was like, we'll figure it out. Don't worry. We will get there.
By the time someone has you come on board, right? You mentioned a little bit ago, like, hey, we need you to come in and help with this thing. What's making an actor, and or let's be honest, it's not all on the actor's shoulder, right? We got the writing, we got the director. Let's be honest, it's everybody. What is the best way that you help people approach, like, hey, this is flat versus you're in the pocket on this? What helps you kind of delineate? Here's the issue, and here's how we approach it.
I mean, it really just depends on each actor,
Yeah.
because I've been doing this a while, it's pretty easy to tell, like, what's screwing them up right now. Really, it's whatever's happening with them that day.
Okay.
It's just trying to give them, or just, something's not working. I think you should try to have a different concentration. It's truly like, it's so situational. That's a hard thing to blanket,
Right. I know it's a big.
you know? But I think often, listen, I think the more you do it, and the more you're on set, you start to recognize like, it's such a collaborative art form. You know what I mean? It's so collaborative. And I also notice that it's always the people who are on set when I give them notes that are always so open to any note. They're very excited to hear it. Whereas often it's because they already have the job. So they're not feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And often it's like the newer person, like in a classroom, that's like, well, the reason I'm doing this is like, don't explain it. Just like, it's just, listen, I think the more you do this, you realize your job is to be malleable, and also like, just try it. If it doesn't work, they're not gonna use it in the edit.
Right.
Like, let's not debate it. Let's just like give it a shot. And sometimes, listen, it comes different ways. Sometimes a director will give me something. This is what they're going for. I'll come to the actor and say, this is what the director wants. This is what they mean. Here's how I think you can provide that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or other times I'm watching the actor in Video Village, and I can just tell, like with one of my actors who was newer, I could just tell that he kept on going up on something. So I just went back there and I just tried to help him understand the threading and the logic of like where it was coming from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes my job was like, it's funny, I was working on this one show where they were doing block shooting. So it means, for your audience, block shooting, like it's not in order. Like we're jumping around, we're doing that set. So we're jumping around from episode 1 to episode 4 to episode 6 to episode 8. So often what I'm doing is I'm just reminding him where we're at,
Okay. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
about what exactly happened before, and then kind of like saying, let's read it through a few times, and just helping him emotionally shift gears. Because he's literally coming from a scene where it's like really funny, and now it's going to a scene where it's like someone just like broke up with him. So it's like we've got to like really do some hard right angles. And that's the hardest thing. Even on the show like Severance, Adam Scott, I heard him talking about like they're doing block shooting. So like they shot, it wasn't in order or anything. So it's like you gotta really
Like,
switch your mindset constantly.
yeah, like, where am I at right now? Did I just get hit by the truck or no? Okay. Yeah. Like whatever that is. Well,
Yeah, it's really wild.
maybe like if you were to sum up, like if someone's brand new to your class and have some acting behind them, but they're getting into this as a career choice, to summate, like this is your job as an actor. This is your job. I would imagine that definition could help them apply that to whatever that may be. But in essence, what is your job as an actor?
I mean, I think if you're in the pursuit of this career, your job is to show up whether you want to or not. Is to show up for yourself. Like if you can practice two things as an actor, which sound wildly contradictory, but they're not. You have to feel a tremendous amount of urgency while practicing an enormous amount of patience. It's like you just gotta be hungry to dig in, get better, and be okay that you're not. And you can't love the career conditionally. You can't love it only when it's good to you. You have to love it when it's not giving you a shit.
Yeah.
Because I just watch actors too often. Like, listen, it was for me too. Your actors' biggest enemy is themselves. It always will be. This career of acting is no different than life. It's wildly unpredictable. It's messy. It's frustrating. You're out of work. Then there's wonderful moments. It has all these ups and downs. Sometimes people want this career to be that which is not life. Predictable and certain. And that's just not the world that we live in. And you can also argue, listen, and the reality is, if you don't really love this, don't do it. If there's something you love more, do that. You should do what you love. You get one chance in this life. Do the thing that makes you want to show up, because if you really are noticing that you don't want to show up, there's got to be a reason why. Everything in this career life is, to me, a series of domino effects. It's just you're always creating dominoes. when you have a meeting, when you meet someone at Whole Foods and you shake someone's hand, that potentially is a domino. Do you want to be the person who's like present and gracious, or do you want to be the guy that was dismissive? And then all of a sudden, that's creating a domino effect that's not really in service to you. Just no different than when you go into a classroom. Are you the person who's prepared? You don't have to be great, but are you prepared and are you generous? That creates a domino effect. Or are you the actor who never knows their lines, who no one wants to get up with? That creates a domino effect. Are you the editor who is on time, doing the work? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working around, committed. Everything is dominoes. And sometimes I think people forget to have control over what they have control of.
Interesting. That's profound. Yeah.
You can't complain about where your career's at while simultaneously not showing up in a good way. There was a film a few years ago that a teacher of mine, Michael Tennant, starred in, and he wrote it and produced it. It ended up like getting in theaters, and it won South by Southwest, the audience award, and it made it to. It's on Hulu. I recommend to everybody. It's called Pretty Problems. But like, he cast all the people that were in our in. I have a class on Thursday night, and he cast classmates he'd been in class with for years. And the reason he did that is because he could have offered it to a name. I think he could have gotten someone good, but he also needed someone that would truly be prepared because it was a short shooting schedule.
Oh, okay.
He knew they'd kill it, but he knew that there was some name who might take the money, not be very prepared, and lengthen production. But sometimes getting a name, they're just going, yeah, I'm doing this thing. They haven't really investigated or explored it. But he knew that everyone in the class would come and just like kill themselves for this film. And they did. And those were people who had set the right dominoes in motion, to go back to that. So for young people, I think, listen, you have if you're lucky enough to be a multi-hyphenate, to be a writer or whatever that is, and I please write, please, 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 please. Because I just think rather than just looking for this one area to feed you, it's human nature to be like, but I haven't had an audition for a while, and I want to make sure that doesn't. I want to make sure that then great that I'm going to go to this part of my creativity. Like it's all just staying in that creative process. And lastly, and this I think is a really important thing, is figure out how to pay for your life. I mean, this is it sounds so silly, but like, I have a number of actors who just they're able to really go after this career because they have a incredible job that they have worked really hard that will pay their life. So they're not worried about it. They can be in class, they can fully commit, they can leave when they want, but they worked really hard to create that. I think sometimes when I watch actors, they're so busy just trying to survive,
Right.
that they're not able to actually do the required stuff that would get there. And I get that sounds like a privilege, but the people I'm talking about, they don't come from family money, they don't come from obscene wealth. They've just been very practical regarding how can I have some skills that will pay me.
Yeah, right. Well, otherwise, yeah, you're trying to be on set, get into this character, and your mind's on like, oh, I can't pay my rent this month or something, or that would pull you right out of it.
Yeah, it's really sad because in the world we're living in, which is a interesting place right now, sometimes it's like the thing people really need is the arts,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and we're living in a world where the arts are considered a luxury item.
Yeah, which is very, very strange because we're all affected by it one way or another. Even the guys are like, well, it's a bunch of zeros and ones. And no, we're all affected by that in a very positive way. And they help pull your mind out of the gutter or help set you straight or help inspire you or whatever.
The National Endowment was created by FDR, during with the Depression, because he was like, people need to be entertained in a time of crisis, and now the current administration is just like, George Bush was the one who firstly started to strip the National Endowment. And now it's like, they're really just trying to like shoot it right now. It's really interesting that to me, it's really sad that the arts are considered a liberal luxury.
Right.
That to me, it just makes, I don't understand. It's no, it is for all. Maybe it's because they're making like liberal, like, open-minded content, or liberal content. But I think at the end of the day, it is, it's such an amazing unifying thing,
Yeah.
where it should be supported more.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Methods of Fiction. To hear more insights from filmmaking and entertainment industry professionals, subscribe to our video podcast on YouTube. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to follow us there as well. We look forward to having you join us again on the next episode.